Welcome back to Faith for Dummies. Hi everyone. Hi Rob.
Hi Izzie. Hi everyone. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm all right, thank you. I'm all right. It's been an okay week. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. It's been also an okay week.
Just one of
How
those really
average of
normal,
us.
boring weeks. I know.
Yeah, cool. So, dummy moments. Izzie, do you have many?
I do. I have the classic dummy moment. As most of you know, I work for a church, so I try and get there on a Sunday for about 9 a.m. to set up everything
Wow,
and talk
9.
to people. I know. 9:30, if I'm a bit tired. I wake up on Sunday morning having slept through my alarm at 9:30. So I had to scramble around and get ready because at 10 a.m. our service starts. Like people arrive for coffee. So that wasn't fun. And I was in quite a bit of a rush and I was very grumpy because of it. So I'm really sorry if you were at my church on Sunday morning and you spoke to me.
So your church starts at 10 with coffee?
Yeah, so we start at 10:15 coffee and then our service starts at 10:30.
Oh, do you do tea and coffee afterwards as well?
No.
So church finishes and you all leave?
Church finishes and we all eat cake.
Oh, wow. That sounds good.
Yeah, it's great. You should come and visit.
Yeah, I'd like to. It's a shame where you live is so far away.
Anyway, what are we talking about today, Rob?
So, today we're talking about being young and being a leader. And I think we just wanted to have a chat, you and I, didn't we? And talk about being a young leader. And there's a few people in our churches, young people, who are exploring leadership in different ways. And so they often have the same questions that they ask you and they ask me. And so we thought we'd chat about it and talk about it and see what happens, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, this episode is coming out whilst I'm on one of our not summer camps,
Yep.
where we have a bunch of junior leaders there. So they are 16 and 17-year-olds who are learning how to lead in kind of like a safe, fun environment. So we thought this would be like an appropriate time to put this episode out, didn't we?
Yeah. And your job for that camp is to disciple those young leaders, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I'm quite excited to get to spend time with them.
Your meeting that you're doing with them, you can just play them this podcast and say, "Job done. I'm going for a shower."
Yeah, absolutely. They might be listening to it right now.
Instead of listening to real life you.
Absolutely. Anyway, so we thought it'd be good to start in the kind of place before you lead, because I have a bunch of teenagers in our church who really want to start doing things at church or at camp or in other places, but don't really know what to do. So I guess the first question we were thinking about was, how do I start? Where do I even lead? Like, what do I do to step into leadership? So what kind of answers would you give for that, Rob?
Yeah, I think it just depends where we already are, what we're already doing, and see if there's any opportunities in that to just do some leading. Like off the top of my head, is stuff to do with siblings or with friends. There are things at school, projects perhaps, and I think perhaps your attitude to deliberately leading can be a good place to start on that and think about doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I guess adding to that and thinking, where am I not leading and where might there be chances for young people to lead? So I think really obvious places are like Christian Union at school, because that's often run by young people, and like at your church, if you go to church, or at camps. But even in like your weekend jobs and stuff, I don't know, like some of you might be starting to work in like coffee shops or in like retail or something like that. And actually there might be chances for you to take a bit more responsibility if you wanted to.
Yeah, absolutely. Our youth group that we do when we have our Bible study and our discussion, we often share around, we do share around between who's leading, between all the leaders and all the young people. And of course, anyone can opt in and out, so it's not compulsory. But it just helps them get into that environment really of leading a session early. And we have a book as well, which we haven't used in a long time, but it's also a really good resource that it has everything planned out for them already. And so if they want to lead but they don't know what to do or how to do it, they've got this book which really helps them do it. All they have to do is facilitate that. And then it's just stepping out and doing it and seeing how it goes. And often it's great.
Yeah, so I guess it's not doing everything at once, right? And it's not having to like plan things and deliver them and be on your own all at once. Like there are definitely stages.
Yeah.
How do you think, like if you've identified where you could start leading, how do you think you actually get started in those things? Like what are some of the things you could do once you've identified that place?
I think once you've identified them, the best thing to do really is start by serving. And a good question that you can ask for the people that are already there is there anything I can do to help? Anything that would be good and useful? And I think Jesus was the best leader there was, and he was probably also the best servant-hearted person as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We were just chatting, weren't we, about like a couple of places in the Bible where we see Jesus leading by being a servant. So you were sharing about how Jesus washed his disciples' feet, and actually he told them in that moment that that was leadership, was to get down on your knees, like do the like dirty scrubbing of feet that you didn't want to do. And actually that's how he led. And there's a conversation in Mark chapter 10 where James and John, two of the disciples, are asking Jesus whether they can kind of like rule with him and sit by his throne and stuff. And Jesus says to them, you need to start serving. You need to start by serving, because that's how you lead best. And actually in Mark 10:45, we had to learn this as a memory verse once. But Jesus says, even the Son of Man didn't come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. And so like Jesus is saying, like, if you want to learn how to lead, you've got to learn how to serve in the first place. So I guess step number one would be, if you're not serving anywhere, if you're never asking people how you can serve them and help them, you're going to struggle to be a leader.
That's right, yeah. And as Christians, we're always striving to be more like Jesus, less of me, more like Jesus. And if he was serving and he was telling us all to serve, what a great place to start and to strive to be more like him, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think one of my favorite Bible verses is from 1 Timothy 4:12, and it's a very famous verse, but it says, don't let anyone look down on you, but set an example. Don't let anyone look down on you because you are young, but set an example for the believers. And then it lists a few things off, like speech and life and conduct. And just because you're young does not mean that you cannot lead, you cannot be a good example. If you're a Christian as a young person, you already are being an example of Jesus to your friends around you. They see Jesus and they see how they see you.
Yeah, when I was 18, we had a group at church called 412, which was based around that verse, about like, because we were just a bunch of young people who didn't really know where our place was in the church. And that was the whole point, was to be like, don't let people make you feel small just because you're young. Like, you can still lead, you can still make an impact, you can still live for Jesus.
Yeah, absolutely. What about then if we just figured out how to lead and where we can lead and serve, and then we get worried? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think I get a lot of the same questions. And one of the things that we did on our camps for this autumn was we asked all the young leaders questions about what skills they have, but also what worries and fears that they might have. And some of the same things come up again and again. Yeah, so the main question I get is, what if I'm unqualified or I don't know enough stuff? And basically what people are saying is, what if people ask me a question and I don't know how to answer that question? What am I going to do? Which, by the way, I mean, I'll ask for your answer in a second, but for me, I find it hilarious when people ask that, because that is my life. As a youth leader, I just spend the whole time being like, I actually don't know the answer to that. Or in my head, I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't know the answer. How am I supposed to answer this? So this will be advice to myself as well. But yeah, what would you say to that?
Well, it's funny because I remember having youth leaders when I was younger, and look at them and thinking, wow, you know everything.
Yeah.
And now I'm a youth leader for a church myself, and I'm like, wow, I know nothing.
Absolutely. That is so spot on.
Yeah. I mean, I just want to serve young people, and I just want to serve Jesus. And so if people ask me a question that I don't know the answer to, I've now learned the best thing to do is to be honest, say I don't know, and just try and go away and learn about it and find out and see if I can get back to them with some sort of answer that makes sense, really.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of just saying, I don't know, do you want to Google it? And sometimes that makes them laugh because they don't think that the answer to a Bible question could be found on Google, but actually sometimes it can. Or sometimes you can find something online and you're not really sure what it means, or you don't really agree, and then you can go to somebody else and ask. But I like doing that with young people. Like, do you know what? You Google it and I'll try and explain what it is that you've Googled. Because sometimes I do know the answer, I just didn't know that I knew it. Or sometimes I can kind of pair it up with something else that I know about God already. So that can be quite helpful. But yeah, just be honest and say that you don't know, and that's okay.
Yeah. And also, even as recently as me planning for my Sunday morning session that's just happened, there was a story that I was very unfamiliar with, and the point was really hard to understand. I had to do some reading and learn it for myself, and still only understand the main point of it, and still find it challenging beyond that.
Yeah, I think nobody's expecting you to be a Bible expert.
Yeah.
Like, nobody's expecting that. So it's completely okay to to say, actually, I haven't figured that out yet either. So why don't we figure it out together, or I'll go away and have a look, or I'll ask somebody else.
Nice.
Especially when it's like an emotional question. Sometimes it's a big question like, why has God allowed suffering? And you're like, I don't even know where to go with that. And that's okay to just say you don't know and you want to go away and think about it and research it and ask somebody else. So that's my answer for that.
Yeah, good answer. Thank you. Another good question that we can talk about worries is, what if you're nervous about public speaking or even leading?
Yeah, I think I get this question a lot from people who are leading, like starting to lead in churches and on camps, because I think they are places where people do practice public speaking and stuff like that, right? Yeah, I think there's kind of two answers to this in my head. Like, one half of it is we all just have to start somewhere. Nobody is born being an excellent public speaker. And even if you're a really confident person, doesn't necessarily mean that you're good speaking on a stage. So if your leadership style, the thing that you want to lead in involves speaking on a stage, you may just have to practice, and it may be really awkward. Like, you might just have to ask a trusted friend if you can stand in front of them in the living room and deliver a talk, and you'll feel really awkward. But then when you're standing in front of a bunch of people on the stage, you won't feel as bad. But my other half would be like, it's not for everybody. And I think there is this kind of lie in the church sometimes that the only important roles are the ones that stand on the stage. So a worship leader, a preacher, things like that. And I think actually they're really not. And I think there are people who are gifted in that, who should be doing that and should practice that. And there are times when it's absolutely fine to learn a new skill and to do that sort of thing. But if that isn't for you, or you just don't feel that you're gifted at that and your giftings lie elsewhere, then that's okay. And actually, just because those roles are seen does not mean they're more important. So yeah, in some ways, practice, have a go, see if it's for you, see if you can improve. But also, it's okay if it's not. Don't let anybody make you feel like that's the only important role in leadership, is to be seen at the front,
Yeah, absolutely. And part of my job is various points is leading things and standing at the front sometimes and doing stuff. And you know what? I still get nervous about doing that. And sometimes I'm even like, I still don't think this comes naturally to me. But I do it because it's part of my job. And I try and do it in a way that is still genuine to who I am, not putting on an act, but actually it's just me leading. I'm an extroverted person. I like talking to people. So I just do it like that, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess off the back of that, in terms of like that you like talking to people, I don't know if this is one of your fears. So we're both extroverts, right? We're both sociable. We both like talking to people. Anyone who knows us will know that we're always up for a chat. However, one of the questions I get a lot from young people, especially recently, is how do I talk to people I don't know? So when I'm in a position of leadership, I suddenly am the person that people are looking to. They're asking me questions. Maybe somebody new walks in and everybody looks at me to go and greet them. And often I'm looking around as well. And I'm like, who's going to go and greet them? Who's going to go and welcome them? Or who's going to have that conversation with them? And then I realize it's me and I have to go and talk to the person I don't know. So what would your advice be as someone who, I think you are quite good at that. What would your advice be?
Oh, thank you.
For context, Rob was one of the first people to speak to me when I joined the summer camps that we go to.
Was I?
Yeah, you were one of the first people to like really take an interest in actually talking to me and getting to know who I was. So that's why I say I think you're good at this.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just genuinely I'm interested in people, and I really like hearing what people have to say. And if you ask good questions, people will do all the talking for you.
Yeah. I agree. I think you've given two pieces of advice there. So one is ask good questions and they'll do all the talking. So if you actually ask a question that requires them to think about it and answer it in full, then that's a good idea. So that's a good skill to develop, how to ask good questions. Not just, did you have a good week, but what was your favorite thing that you did this week, or something like that.
Open-ended questions.
Absolutely. Open questions are your friend. But also, I think you were saying that you just like talking to people and you're interested in talking to people. I suppose the advice is, if you're not interested in talking to people at all, then you might not be cut out for leadership, because you're going to have to talk to people a lot, right? You're going to have to actually have conversations with the people that you're leading. But yeah, I agree. Come up with some questions. This is what I did. Like, I like people, but I'm not good at small talk. So I just had to come up with some questions that I ask people.
Yeah.
So I'm often talking to teenagers. And so I always ask, how was your week at school? What was your favorite lesson? What was your least favorite lesson? And what's something fun that you've done this week? And even just those questions, that's 10 minutes of conversation right there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
sometimes you just got to have some questions in your pocket ready to ask them.
Yeah. Yeah. I think if you say, why is that as well, people are often very happy to explain really why they think that was their best lesson.
Yeah. And making people feel welcome is such a big thing, especially in churches or at school. If you're in a position of leadership at school and you can make the new kid feel welcome, even just by sitting with them and asking how their day's going, you're probably going to have a really big impact on them. But it doesn't have to be a big conversation. So it doesn't have to be this huge amount of pressure that you need to go and have a half an hour conversation with somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a good question that we can ask or try and talk about a bit is, how do I know what my skills gifts are? Because we have young people in my youth group. If they say, "Oh, I'm not very musical, I'm not very sporty, I can't do the obvious gifted things," and I'm doing that in air quote marks, which as you can see, but you guys can't see. So I think how then can we tell what gifts and skills young people have?
I think a good place to start with things like that is asking people around you. So trying out some of your gifts and your skills and kind of thinking, what do I enjoy? What am I good at? Maybe what subjects at school I'm good at, or what hobbies I have, but asking people around you as well. And when I say what hobbies you have, I grew up thinking I wasn't very good at stuff because I was like that person you were saying. I'm not musical, I'm not sporty. I was really, really, really shy. And the kinds of things I liked doing were I liked reading and I liked organizing stuff, which sounds really, really dull. And like, how is that a skill? But I later learned that organizing is a massive skill that some people don't have. And actually, I use it a lot in my job. And people find it helpful that I'm good at organizing and that I can, I find joy in doing that. And the same with reading. And there'll be other skills that people have that they really like doing. Actually, those things can be used. So maybe just have a chat with people close to you about what you're good at, where your skills lie, but also think about what you enjoy.
Yeah, I agree. I think don't copy others. People are unique. We're all part of the body of Christ. We're all different parts, and that's okay. We can be good at things and not good at other things. Absolutely fine.
Yeah, definitely. If you're like leading in church or on camp or at Christian Union or in a sports team or whatever it might be, and you're watching your best friend and they're leading in a certain way, or they're really good at speaking on stage or, something like that, it's really easy to try and be like them, but actually you need to lead in a way that works for you.
Yeah, good. Okay, last question then, Izzie. What if I'm not a good role model?
What if you're not a good role model? I mean, I think this on a daily basis. I don't know about you, Rob, but I think this
hourly
so
basis.
Often. I think it's that whole imposter syndrome thing again, isn't it? Like, I'm not good enough to do this. But actually, I suppose some young people ask me this kind of question. They phrase it a bit differently. So they might say, like, I've got a problem with this thing. Like, if they're leading in church, they might say, I have a problem with gossiping or something like that. And then they'll say, that means I can't lead, right? Because I've got this big issue that I can't get past. And sometimes that will be right. It will be right for you to go away and figure that out and work on that and then come back again.
Yeah.
But sometimes I think every leader is not good in some way. Like, they're sinful in some way. They're not a good role model in some way. And so I think it's better to just be honest about it, to be honest with the people that you're leading, but also to be honest with people that can support you. So you don't always have to be super vulnerable with everybody, but I think it's good to say, today I'm going to teach you about this thing, or I'm going to lead you in this thing. But by the way, I'm not very good at that. Like, take sports, for example. I mean, I'm awful at sports, so I don't know why I'm using this as an analogy. But if you were really, really bad at scoring goals in football, but you're the coach of a football team, because, that's something you're doing in your young leadership, it's okay to say that. It's okay to say, by the way, I'm really bad at doing this, but I understand how it works. So I'm going to tell you how to do it. And maybe I'll ask somebody else to show you, but I'm not great at this. So I'm going to be practicing as well. So I think you're just being honest, and integrity is about being honest and not about being perfect.
Yeah. And it's a good example using a sports team, because there are different positions, aren't there? And if you're a manager, for example, and you can't do one, but you might be able to do other things, and you might be able to have people around you that can help in different sections as well. There's loads of people involved. So yeah, it's good analogy. I think it's important to remember as well that disciples weren't perfect. Peter was often known as the one-footed disciple because he'd have the other foot in his mouth because he'd just say stupid stuff.
I've never heard it like that.
Yeah, but it's true. I mean, you read about him and you just say, "Oh, Peter, come on again!" Like, and so yeah, it's just a good reminder that even Jesus' disciples, like his little youth group, wasn't perfect. But then, who goes on to start the early church? The disciples.
Yeah,
And it
absolutely.
says it all, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And my pastor will always say, if you ask him what his favorite Bible verse is, it's 2 Corinthians 12:9, which is all about how God's grace is sufficient for us in our weakness. So when we are weak, that's when people see his power. And I think we don't always have to lead out of our weakness. If we need to take a step back and recalibrate, that's fine. But actually, if your weakness is just that you're not very good at something, or you haven't practiced something, or you've got something that you're wrestling with and struggling with, you can still lead. But you have to know that you're leading in a place of really relying on God and relying on his power and his strength, and not just on your own power and strength and skills. So I think that's probably really important for everything we've said today, that actually, whether you're just starting to lead, you're thinking about where you might lead, you're in a position of leadership and you're really nervous, or you feel like you're getting it wrong, like you're doing all of this through God's power and not through your own.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think final perhaps pieces of advice would be, my leadership style and how I do it is still evolving. I'm still not perfect. I've still done mistakes this week. And
me too.
I'm always trying to seek God's grace, seek Jesus in what I'm doing, and make sure that I'll try and do better next time. And we all fall short, but the story doesn't stop there. You know, I'm always trying to be that better leader. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thanks so much for this conversation, Rob. I feel like it's a conversation that we could carry on for a while, but we only have so long.
Yeah, exactly.
So what are we going to be talking about next week?
So I believe that next week you are interviewing someone we both know called Ezra to talk about exams.
We are. I'm going to talk to Ezra next week about how we trust God through exams and keep leaning on him, even if the results are not what we want. So we'll see you next week.
Brilliant. Thank you, Izzy. Thanks, everyone. See you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.